And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, I'm going to be reading off a list of, this was a list made by ESPN. They are talking about, it's a list about the top 25 NBA athletes of the 21st century. So I'm just going to, talk a little bit about that, talk about the players and, who I think should be on the list, who I think deserves to be on the list, this, that, and the other, whether or not I agree with the player being on the list or whether or not I don't agree with the player being on the list. You're going to hear all of that in this third segment. Him is in the chat once again. How's it going, him? Now, let's go right ahead and start on with the list. So, obviously, the number one athlete and the number one NBA athlete of the 21st century is LeBron James. There's just no question about it, no ifs, ands, or buts. And it should also be noted that LeBron is also on, I believe he's fourth on top 100 athletes in the 21st century, because ESPN they recently did a list about the top athletes of the 21st century. So it's top athletes, so it's not just basketball, it's in every single American sport. I think Messi is like number 3 on that list. I think Tom Brady is like 5th on that list maybe. But yeah, it's every single athlete, and I know like there's so many athletes on the regular list that I just couldn't talk about it all. And I'm pretty sure that I know that the first few picks on this list, they are also they're ranked chronologically from the list of top 100. So if any NBA players made the top 100 list, they would be in this order. So number 1 is LeBron James. Obviously, he is the best athlete of the 21st century. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And if anyone doesn't agree with the fact that he is just, the best athlete of the 21st century, I don't know what to tell you, because a lot of people, they like to make the argument that he's not the best ever. But I'm sure no one can really make an argument for him not being the best in the 21st century. I think everyone can agree that he is by far the best athlete of this generation. But, that is still just my opinion. So the next player on this list is Kobe Bryant. Now, a lot of people are honestly, I was a little bit surprised that he was ranked this high, just because, ESPN doesn't really take kindly to ranking Kobe, super high in terms of, best basketball players ever, right? He's on the bottom 10 of the top 10 NBA basketball players, at least according to ESPN, most of the time on these lists. So I'm pretty surprised seeing him ranked the second best athlete on this entire list. Obviously, he is a 2-time finals MVP, a 1-time regular season MVP, a 5-time NBA champion, an 18-time All-Star, and a 15-time All-NBA selection, 12-time All-NBA defense, 4-time All-Star Game MVP. The list goes on and on. He is arguably he's arguably the closest athlete to MJ that isn't MJ. When people think of MJ's play style, everyone just immediately remembers Kobe Bryant just, copying that play style and arguably perfecting it to play in today's league, because Kobe is one of the very few athletes that played in the early, in the late 1990s, as well as playing in the early 2000s and in the late 2000s and even the late 2010s. He's played in a lot of different eras with basketball. He was there when the league shifted its focus from mid-range shooting to three-point shooting, and this, that, and the other. He's obviously a huge icon of the sport, one of the most favorite basketball players, period. In 2008, when he went over in on the Olympics when he went over to China, everyone knew who Kobe was over there, and it was just wow. It opened up everyone's eyes. Next player on this list is Stephen Curry. Now, if there was any player that sort of would take LeBron's shine for best player in 2010s, it would arguably be Stephen Curry. Like, aside from LeBron dominating in the early 2010s, Steph Curry was the player that was dominating in the late 2010s all the way back in 2015. And the Warriors, they've been a dynasty for the longest time. Now is like one of the very few times where it seems like the Warriors can't really win anything with Stephen Curry. And, ever since 2015 and ever since, 2014, the Warriors have always been like just a big threat. Now, him in the chat, he said Wemby next. I'm calling it. I mean, he probably will be on the list of players that, dominates an entire decade. But next on this list, that's not happening simply because this is just best athletes of the 21st century and, well, the best NBA players of the 21st century, and Wemby literally just started. So, but if you do mean that he's going to be the next player to just, dominate eras, that's probably true, aside from maybe Luka. But next player on this list is Tim Duncan. Again, similar to Victor and similar to David Robinson, he was a number one pick for the Spurs, and he is a Hall of Famer, obviously, arguably the best power forward in the history of the NBA. He was selected 13 times to be an All-NBA player. He was also a 13-time All-Defensive player, 14-time NBA All-Star, a 2-time MVP, a 2-time Finals MVP, and aside from he's one of the very few players that was this close to reaching a 6-0 finals record, but it took LeBron to prevent Tim Duncan from winning not 6 straight finals, but preventing Tim Duncan from having a 6-0 finals record. He has a 5-1 finals record. Obviously, the only finals game that he lost was with the only finals game that he lost, or the only final series that he lost, was against LeBron James, and in 2013, that was the year. So that was really the only, I wouldn't even call it a stain, because I mean he still made it to the finals, but it's just that 3-point shot that Ray Allen hit at the end is really going to be remembered for a very long time. Next player on this list for ESPN is Shaq. So far, I mean, Shaq is probably not going to like being ranked lower than Kobe Bryant, but I believe the reason why he was ranked lower is because the longevity that Kobe Bryant has over Shaq is far better. Like, Shaq might have had the better peak years, but Kobe had the better longevity, as well as just being, I mean, the finals MVPs and the finals appearances, and just the fact that he has 3 of those is just far better than the fact that Kobe Bryant only has 2 of those. On top of that, his time with the Orlando Magic is also nothing to really scoff at, despite the fact that they didn't really win anything over there. But so far, this list is going pretty good. I mean, you can't really complain about this list all that much. Next player on this list is Kevin Garnett. Now, Kevin Garnett is, he's one of those rather polarizing players. Aside from Tim Duncan, right, and maybe even Dirk, this is arguably one of the best power forwards that the league has seen. Now, he only has 1 championship, and the biggest reason for, just that 1 championship is because he, formed the Boston Celtics. They had a big 3, and this was arguably, the only reason why he has a championship ring, but he gets a lot of criticism for that being the only time he won a championship. But his time on the Timberwolves, he had no help. There was no player on the Timberwolves that was good enough to help him. He actually is one of the few players to lead an entire franchise in everything. Like, he leads the Timberwolves in points, leads the Timberwolves in rebounds, leads in assists, all of that. And KD actually he comes up on this list, but he doesn't come up as soon as you would think. Like, Jokic is next on this list. Like, that's where my problem with ESPN is sort of it's starting to be a little more apparent, because Jokic being on this list this early is a problem to me, because I mean, Jokic he has MVPs, right? He has championships, he has finals MVPs, but I feel like he is a little bit too young to be on this list. Like, I think one of the biggest reasons why he's on this list so high, like, and so early, is because he was able to overcome 2-3-1 leads in the bubble, and that was like the only time in the history of basketball that's happened. And on top of that, he is the best passing big man that the league has seen. So, I mean, I understand top 10, yes, he should be in the top 10, but I don't think he should be 7th, especially over the next guy on this list, Dwayne Wade, because I feel like, I don't know, I just have nostalgia, and I really like D Wade. Aside from Kobe Bryant, this was the best shooting guard in the 2000s and the 2010s, and it's not even close. Like, this is by far the best shooting guard. And he has 3 championships. He also has a finals MVP. I think he is the only player in the top 10 that does not have an MVP. Like, he is the only player in the top 10 that does not have a regular season MVP. But, aside from that, him being at 8 is definitely respectable, and I really like that. Next on this list is, it's finally Kevin Durant. And while I do think he should have probably been a little bit higher than some of the players on this list, I don't think he should be ranked higher than Giannis, who is a little bit lower on this list. And I mean, I feel like me personally, I would put KD over someone like Jokic, but at the same time, I could understand if you wouldn't want him over someone like Jokic, simply because, like, Kevin Durant, he needed his championships, and the only way to get his championships was by joining a ridiculously stacked team in the Golden State Warriors, basically making the NBA a little unwatchable. So, and also, I'm going to continue on with this list a little bit in the next segment, now that I think about it, because we are running out of time for this third segment. So I'm going to go ahead and continue this list in the fourth segment right after this short break. So be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.